Oh my goodness. Now, Raven Johnson not being able to play as much is a telltale sign that the sabotage along the team is definitely for real. It's definitely for real. A lot of people have been in my comment section and many others stating that, bro, when it comes to stopping a defender or another guard, there's no way Raven Johnson should not have been sticking on Sony. I'm telling you right now, the sabotage is in, not just against.
The frustration surrounding the Indiana Fever has reached a boiling point among the fan base, with supporters calling for the removal of both head coach Stephanie White and team executive Amber Cox. The
team has yet to secure a single home victory, and the backlash is intensifying by the day. Commentator Jason Whitlock escalated the situation by publicly calling for a boycott of home games until both White and Cox are dismissed. The message gained traction quickly on social media, with fans redistributing it widely. A mock Resistance membership card began circulating, drawing large numbers of supporters who expressed alignment with the movement.
It's against Caitlin Clark, but it could be all of this could solely be on Caitlin Clark. But let's read some of these comments, man. Look, attention, please. Following last night's Fever games, the resistant enrollment has officially surged to record levels. Orientation begins, bro. Wow. Playmaking, construction of the roster, masterclass guards. Now, did the Indiana Fever, let's just fact check this. Oh, no.
The fan-driven response has taken on a life of its own, with a dedicated social media page operating under the hashtag #FireStephanieWhite, accumulating a steady stream of criticism directed at the
team's leadership. Among the complaints being raised, several stand out. Raven Johnson's limited playing time has become a flashpoint, with many observers arguing that keeping her off the floor,
particularly in situations that call for defensive guard play, represents a failure of roster deployment. The belief that the team's struggles are not accidental has gained significant ground in fan discussions. The statistical case against the current coaching approach is also being made loudly.
They didn't really drop this. This is something that the fans is doing. Welcome to the Fever Resistant. We don't come, we do Fever. Fire Stephanie White. So this is like a petition. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh wow. I thought that was something that they put out. Damn. Now moving on to something else. There is a whole nother page, right? This is what
Caitlin Clark finished the recent loss as the only starter with a positive +/- rating, and she leads the team in that category for the season. Despite that, critics argue White has been working to fit Clark into a system built around other players, specifically one that funnels possessions toward isolation opportunities for Kelsey Mitchell. Some fans have gone further, suggesting that White's post-game comments consistently target Clark, either directly or indirectly, and that Clark's name is notably absent from any public praise. The decision to bench Clark for 6 minutes during the first half has drawn particular scrutiny, with many pointing to it as the moment the game became unwinnable. The argument being made is that disrupting a player of Clark's caliber mid-rhythm is a strategic error that a more experienced or capable coach would not make.
This is what I wanted to show you guys last night. There is a page on Twitter that is #FireStephanieWhite. Time to change game too fast. High octane style. Caitlin is to go. Steph White should only coach defense, not offense. Shout out to our fans. We're amazing. There were a huge reason we're able to get back in this game. So that was Caitlin Clark showing love to the fans.
A growing segment of the fan base has begun expressing concern that remaining in Indiana under this coaching staff could have long-term consequences for Clark's career trajectory. The view being
Circulated is that White lacks the tactical foundation to build a championship-level system, and that the current roster decisions reflect that limitation clearly. Away from the basketball court, Clark made headlines for entirely different reasons. Her foundation partnered with Lily and musical lighting to open 3 community courts across Indianapolis, with an announcement and ribbon-cutting ceremony held at Lily's corporate center. The gesture was widely praised as a meaningful investment in the local community.
I gotta retweet this. That is just, I thought that was for real. Whoever made this, it just lit, bro. I thought that was a real thing. So Caitlin Clark was the only starter with the positive plus minus yesterday. She leads the team this season with the positive plus minus. Yet Stephanie White's only goal is to coach CC into a system player that fits her vision. I mean, her version of pass the ball in circle until it goes to Kelsey Mitchell, who.
The contrast between Clark's off-court contributions and the dysfunction surrounding the team on the court has not been lost on observers. The fan pressure campaign shows no signs of slowing, and if the Fever continue to struggle at home, the calls for organizational change will only grow louder. Stephanie White's handling of the post-game press conference after Indiana's fourth-quarter rally raised eyebrows, and the numbers make it hard to defend her answer. When a reporter asked White specifically about Caitlin Clark, pointing out that Clark had hit 5 threes in the fourth quarter alone, more than the team's combined total across the first 2 games, White's response was to spread the credit around. "Our whole group showed resilience," she said, pointing to good time and score execution and tough shots made collectively.
Goes ISO or chucks offense. Yeah, like we already know, the Kelsey Mitchell situation is toxic and diabolical in itself. Somebody stated, this is a really big problem, Andrew Cox and Indiana Fever at Pacers. Stephanie White's sole objective is to take the shine off CC. She never praises her, always directly or indirectly criticizes her. Most of her post critiques are directed at CC, even when she doesn't.
It was a textbook deflection. The on-ROF data tells a completely different story. There are exactly 3 Indiana Fever players currently posting positive net ratings: Sophie Cunningham, Maisha Hines Allen, and Caitlin Clark. Clark has the best on-ROF differential in the entire league right now. What happened in that fourth quarter had nothing to do with collective effort. It was Clark deciding to take the game over personally, getting into a 2-man rhythm with Hines Allen, and refusing to let the team stay buried.
Name her. Wow. So now Stephanie White ain't saying Caitlin Clark's name. We're going to have to start sending video clips to the front office again about these referees. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. Again, we're back to 2024. Everybody fouls Caitlin, but she touches. I mean, as soon as she touches anybody, it's called. We lost this game when Stephanie White sat Caitlin Clark for 6 minutes in the first half. She kills Caitlin Clark rhythm. At the same time, she isn't the right coach for the Fever.
The contrast becomes even harder to ignore when comparing how other coaches handle similar situations. On the same day, Portland's Nate Tibbetts was asked about Alyssa Thomas, a player who had been struggling for several games before taking over in the fourth quarter herself. Tibbetts gave her full credit without hesitation when Becky Hammon gets a question about Aja Wilson. She answers it directly. But when White gets a question about Clark, the answer somehow becomes about everyone.
At this point, I am convinced that Caitlin need to get out of Indiana. If not, it's going to ruin her career. And I don't believe she's going to win a championship because Stephanie White isn't capable enough of coaching her way into into a championship based on the roster that she be orchestrating. Because it's clear as day that Stephanie White do not look like
The way White talks about Clark versus how she talks about Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston is a pattern that goes back to last season. Mitchell and Boston regularly drew enthusiastic public praise.
Clark tends to get the group effort treatment. None of this is to say White is deliberately working against Clark. She is, by most evaluations, a capable basketball coach.
Season. A lot of stuff. The front office has been a major reason for the, I'm not going to say dead hype of Caitlyn, because it's not that, but the mania dying. And they might say, you know what? We can cash in on her. If we cash in on her now, we can keep Kelsey. Like, they're not going to be able to afford to keep Caitlyn Kelsey. So they're going to have to either cash in on Caitlin Clark now, or you lose Kelsey Mitchell and Steph White.
There is also a legitimate argument that coaches often shield individual players from media pressure by distributing credit publicly. But there is a meaningful difference between protecting a player and consistently refusing to acknowledge what the numbers and the eye test are both screaming. Clark was 0-for-7 in the first half with 4 points. She then put the team on her back and made shot after
shot when it mattered most. The commentary from her own coach after the fact treated it as a team-wide moment of character.
And Steph White. Like, that's basically what it is. It's not just, it is the second greatest player in the history of your franchise and the coach who you brought in and you want to keep there long term, or your superstar young player who projects to be the greatest point guard ever. They could pull a Nico Harrison. But let's take a listen to Stephanie White. So, on the same day where Nate Tibbetts goes out in the public,
that disconnect is real. What made the fourth quarter comeback work was straightforward. Give Clark the ball, let her operate, and stop reverting to the original rotation. When the starters who had
struggled in the first half were reinstated, the run stalled, the game went back and forth, and Indiana ultimately let a winnable contest slip away in overtime. Had the lineup that was actually working stayed on the floor, Hines, Allen, Clark, Lexi Hull, and Monique Billings at minimum, the outcome very likely looks different.
the same day where Nate Tibbetts goes out in the public and he's asked about Alyssa Thomas. I want to see what Nate Tibbetts. Alyssa Thomas has been terrible for a few games. And Nate Tibbetts has been asked about players. I need to find where the clip is. I cannot find the clip. But basically, Alyssa Thomas has been very poor.
The broader organizational dynamic here deserves attention too. The Fever are at a roster crossroads. Keeping both Clark and Kelsey Mitchell long-term may not be financially viable. If the front office ever decides to prioritize Mitchell and the current coaching staff, the logical consequence is moving Clark, essentially cashing in on the most marketable player in the sport.
For a little bit of time. Like, she's been poor the last couple of games, and she took over in the fourth quarter yesterday, and he was asked about it, and it's like, yeah, you know, Alyssa Thomas, like, basically hyped up Alyssa Thomas. Anytime Becky Hammond is asked about A'ja Wilson, she'll answer about A'ja Wilson. But Stephanie White asked about Caitlin Clark, who dragged the team by herself back into the game.
That calculations sounds extreme, but organizations have made stranger decisions. Ego Harrison's situation with a prior franchise is a recent enough example to take seriously as a cautionary tale. What the press conference moment captured is a coaching environment where the best player on the roster
arguably the most impactful guard in the league by current metrics, can drag a team back from a
14-point deficit and not receive a direct acknowledgement of that from her head coach. That is the situation in Indiana right now.
Herself back into the game. This is what she said.
Yeah, Steph, what did you think of the rally that your team had in the fourth quarter, particularly when it comes to Caitlin? I think she made 5 threes in that fourth quarter, more than her first 2 games combined. So just your thoughts on the resilience from her.
I thought our whole group showed resilience, in that rally. We showed the ability to make tough shots. We had some really good time and score execution moments, offensively and defensively, in those moments. We just have to have more of it consistently.
Asked about Caitlin Clark, and she goes, well, it's actually our whole team. No, it's actually our whole team. No. The Indiana Fever's on-off per 100 possessions is literally, there are 3 players that are a positive on the floor for the Indiana Fever this year. Sophie Cunningham, Maisha Hines-Allen, and Caitlin Clark. Ironically, the Indiana Fever are best. The best on-court numbers is Maisha Hines-Allen. The best net rating on the Indiana Fever, our best on-court numbers, is Maisha Hines-Allen. Caitlin Clark has the best on-off numbers in the league right now. It was nothing to do with anyone else other than Caitlin saying, fuck this shit, I'm getting us back in the game. That is what it was. Caitlin Clark just said, fuck this shit, I'm getting us back in the game. And she did. The team was running bullshit. The team was running bullshit. The team couldn't get an open shot. The team couldn't get an open shot. The team was running nonsense. And Caitlin Clark said, fuck that. I'm getting us back in. I'm shooting. I don't care. Maisha, I'm going to give you the ball. Give the ball fucking back to me. When I give you the ball, Maisha, you give it back, and we'll be fine. When I give you the ball, you give it back, and